Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Sayyidina wa nabiyyina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wa ala alihi wa sahabihi. Wa man ittabaha bil ihsani ila yawmiddin. Wa ba'd, assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullah. I thank you for giving me this opportunity to be with you this afternoon and to have this all-important discussion on COVID-19 and the looming financial crisis in the Ummah, the effective Zakat system to the rescue. The topic is not only timely, it is one that is must be encouraged, and it is one that we must have for us to actually sail out of this. So I thank you, and I thank the organizers from the academy, particularly from the Zakat and Sadaqah unit, for having this occasion. I also listened to the brother, Alhamdulillah, and I want to congratulate you for having taken the time to collect such a huge amount of money and also administering such a huge amount of money within a time lapse. I congratulate you. I want to congratulate all of us for this wonderful month of Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the barakah of this month. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our siyam, our fast, accept all our act of ibadah. May Allah grant us the ultimate reward of this Ramadan, which is in Al-Jannah Firdaus. Ameen. Now, let me come back to the topic. When this topic was sent, I went back and I started looking at a different thing on Zakat and the technicality of Zakat and the rest. And I tried to put the slide together. Having handed this slide to my daughter to help me look at some spelling check, she said to me, "Who are the audience?" And I said, "I'm presenting it to the academy." She now said, "I think you are having a wrong presentation." So I said, "How?" She said, "Why are you looking at the technicality of Zakat when that job will have been finished by our late Sheikh Abayami, Rahimallah?" So I said, "Oh, I think you are right. Why should I be talking about what they have known? There's nothing about Zakat that I want to talk about that you don't know. So you know everything about Zakat. It's something you know, you started, you have practiced. However, I just want to call our attention to one or few things that will assist us as we go along in this journey. So that's why I've put together these few slides that we'll be discussing together this morning. And inshallah, I will start with looking at the economic condition around the world and in Nigeria particularly, based on the figures that are staring us on the face. Then I will link that side by side with our activities in Zakat, and we'll now say, what are the things that we really need to do, and we urge ourselves to actually pay more. Zakat is not new to any Muslim. As a pillar of Islam, it is well known to us. And scholars have said that it is only in 4% of the places that Allah have mentioned Salah that He has not mentioned Zakat. In the Quran, how come I call Allah Ta'ala? Allah said in the Quran, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ وَارْكَعُوا الرَّاكِعِينَ. But أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. He also said very early in the Surah Al-Baqarah, Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَيُؤْتُوا الزَّكَاةَ وَذَلِكَ دِينُ الْقَيِّمَةِ. صدق الله العظيم. هذا دين القيم. So you see how important Zakat is, and Allah continue to emphasize it. So, but that is not the angle I'm going to take this afternoon, because those are the angles that we are all familiar with. I'm going to take a different angle. And so let's go together on this journey, inshallah. So I'll be looking at COVID-19, the world economic concern, the impact of COVID-19 and the decline in oil prices of Nigeria, issues of economic concern in Nigeria, what way of imminent challenge, Zakat, and the level of poverty. And I will conclude from there. I think if there is a household name now among all the Muslims in Nigeria, or among all Nigerians, or among everybody in the world, one thing that resonates and have joined all of us together today is COVID-19. Very interesting. Allah has brought an interesting time when you cannot go to the mosque, when you cannot go on Hajj, you can't go on Umrah, you cannot observe Taraweeh, and you have to stay at home. When we have to even have discussions like this via the media, online media, an interesting time. These are the figures as 2 weeks ago. Infected over 2.2 million people, killed about 700,000 people. Survivors are over 350,000. I was seeing an estimate for Africa that is saying they are expecting 350,000 people to die in Africa. They're spread across all the continents. Most businesses are disrupted. Several cities are locked down. And this is the situation where we have found ourselves. Allah that can lock us down with a virus that we cannot see. Wa tabarakallah rabbil alamin. A virus that we cannot see. You don't need to go to war. All the missiles, oh, this country is advanced. That country is not advanced. That country is very forward-looking. That country is backward. Everybody has come to the same thing based on this virus. And this is one of the tiniest army that Allah can send to humanity. And so, we have it with us today. Somebody has raised hand. Maybe we want to look at that. Okay. Now, what are the serious losses that the world is experiencing today? This is based on JP Morgan Chase forecast. They are looking at the world having a minus 7.9% in cumulative loss, while minus 8.6% will be in the developed world. US alone will lose minus 11.3%. The Euro area will lose minus 6.1%. Japan will lose minus 5.5%, while UK will lose minus 7.0%. Emerging economies like Nigeria will be losing minus 6.7%. These are the initial figures. There are other figures that I will show you as we go along, inshallah. This is how Bloomberg has captured how we're going to be affected, looking at the recession. This is how the recession will take us. And this is how we have fared during the years. You know, from 2005, how we plunked down in 2007, 2008, how the world has tried to come back, and now how we'll be going down again. And it's already in the horizon. We can see what is happening to the oil. The oil got so bad. It got so bad that it went into negative. For the first time in the world, in the history of the world, that you are paying people to take away the oil from you for free. Okay, so it's that terrible for us. IMF further reviewed its 2020 figure to 2021 forecast for Nigerian economy with a further contraction again of 3.4%, and Nigerian contract at 1.6% in 2016. If at 2016, when we had a nightmare in our economy, the total contraction is just 1.6, and now we'll be facing a contraction of 3.4%. We should be bracing up for something different. It's like, okay, so let me give you a clue of what it's going to look like. It's like somebody on 35,000 feet on an aircraft and is doing a free falling. That's what that's what is going to happen to us. So a lot of us will need to retighten our situation and look at the way that we need to actually move forward. Now, a lot of businesses will have, will share a lot of risk. The figures coming out is showing something not too good, but we're seeing that share of employment that is at risk in Africa, 6.4%. In the Arab world, it's going to be about 33.2%. In Asia, 37.9%. In Europe and Central Asia, it's going to be 42%. And in America, it's going to be 43%. But this is happening because most of the employment in Africa is in the non-formal sector. Particularly Africa and Asia is in the non-formal sector. So And that is where most of us, that even Muslims are playing, even in Nigeria. We're playing in the non-formal sector. And most of this non-formal sector will actually disappear. Allah. They will disappear, the jobs will disappear. Those are the kind of challenges that we're envisaging that will happen. Some of the jobs will not come out again. And some people, if they don't go out on a daily basis, they can't actually eat. So let me cite an example that is closer home. After this pandemic, less and less people will take downfall buses. Less and less people will take downfall buses. And you know how the number of the huge army that we have driving these buses. Less and less people will take these buses to commute. Less and less people who have the resources will want to go into open markets. Less and less people will engage menial workers. If you go to the Mile 12 market, you see what we do. While we have people whose daily income comes from washing other people's legs that they have used to match the debts in the markets. Less and less people will do this job. Less and less people will even go into this kind of places. So these are the kind of challenges that are facing us, which we have to confront. And one of the instruments that which we can confront it is Zakat. So if you pause here and you look at Zakat in uniformity, and you look at it from the angle rather of providing succor to people who do not have the means, then you begin to look at it differently. The Sharia allows us, the Sharia of Islam allows us to go and fend for ourselves and our family in a halal manner. Where we cannot get that, the Sharia allows us to borrow for what is halal. Where we cannot pay, we can ask for debt forgiveness. Where we die with the debt, our debt becomes the responsibility of the community or our heirs. Where that is not possible, and we have to die out of hunger, and there is no zakat to rescue us, the Sharia allows us to steal. Now, the law that we are practicing in Nigeria is not the Sharia law. The law that we are practicing in Nigeria will make a lot of people to be prosecuted if they steal, if they do. And we will not encourage Muslims to go and steal. So what are the alternatives that we have put in place to take care of this? And that is why I love the fact that we are in a critical time and we are now putting Zakat, layering Zakat on it and see how it can assist us. Now, these are the figures that come out from the Budget Office of the Ministry of Finance and National Planning, came out on the 9th of April. It tries to show us the impact of COVID-19 and declining price on Nigerian 2020 budgets. Our initial budget for 2020 for oil production, 2.18 MD per day, million barrel per day. Revised to 1.7, we're revising downward. I have a stink with a corporation that has a supporting vessel in the deep sea. Last 2 weeks, the government got across to us and said we should convert it into a tanker for storage. Because there's nothing, the production has to go on. So if for those of us who are not old enough to understand the position of the cement Amanda in Nigeria, I'm sure a few of us still remember, that was the year when Nigeria imported more cement than it requires, and it has to throw the cement into the Atlantic Ocean. Today we have more oil around the world, everybody is producing. Russia, Nigeria, the US, everybody is producing. Nobody is buying. And so the best you can do is to throw away the oil. Oil price from 54 to as low as $3. To as low as negative yesterday, day before yesterday, negative, minus. Now, American government has intervened They have spoken to Saudi. They've threatened Saudi, not spoken to them, because they didn't actually agree. They threatened Saudi to remove the American forces from Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is coming now to cut down in its oil production so that the price can go up a little bit. Forecasted revenue from 8.42 trillion naira to 5.08 trillion. It went further yesterday to 3.2 trillion. 3.2 trillion forecasted. Expenditure, 10.59. Now they are asking everybody to take a head cut, both in the public and in the private sector. All the major banks in Nigeria have already announced that to their employees that they are going to take a head cut of between 40 to 50%. If you're not comfortable, you have been advised to resign. I run a small corporation with 236 staffs. We're going to take a head cut as well. So everybody is going to take a head cut in Nigeria, and deficit will go down. So we have declining oil price, declining production, declining national revenue, increased deficit, and increased exchange rates. From the open market, 480 naira to the dollar. So everything is just working negative. Everything is working negative. And that is the picture where we find ourselves today. His friend spoke to me yesterday and he said he has gone into paranoia. Everything that he's doing, that even when he wants to flush his toilet today, he's thinking twice that am I not wasting water? And that is for people who know. They know that things won't be the same again. This is one incident that is going to change our world. I watched Islamic channel yesterday for the Tarawih prayer, and I saw less than 20 people in the whole of the Haram. I also saw in Jerusalem, as the Masjid al-Aqsa, and they asked everybody to go home. The custodian of the Waqf have less than 16 people in the entire masjid conducting the salat. This is reality, not just to the Muslims, but to everybody around the world. Now, let us look at Zakat from this place. I saw this research recently, and it actually interests me. I want us to read it, and then we will discuss it as we go along. Let us read it and take note of the salient point in this research. It is a research conducted by Sheikh and Ismail in 2017. And it stated that Zakat to GDP ratio exceed poverty gap index to GDP. Ratio except in 3 countries with poverty line defined at $1.25 per day. It means that aggregate resources pooled together from the potential Zakat collection in 17 organizations of Islamic cooperation countries will be enough to fund resources for poverty alleviation in all 17 OIC countries combined. Based on all above statement, why the phenomenon of Zakat is interesting and indeed important to study. Now, this is what they've discovered, that when you look at the Zakat in 3 countries, 3 Muslim countries, 3 major Muslim countries in the world, if you pull out the Zakat in those 3 countries, it will fund the poverty level in all the OIC countries. The Muslims today have immense wealth in our hand, alhamdulillah. But we are about the most stingy people. Let me say that again, in another way. The resources in our hand, even as Muslims living in Nigeria, our parents never dreamt of it. Yet they are the one that built all the mosques. And our own neighbor are going hungry. Maybe I should capture it differently. It is the Muslim of today in Nigeria that takes pride to send his children to school abroad, while Muslim children are roaming around the street without education. These are the questions that we need to ask. Whatever is happening to our Zakat. So let's take this in our hand while we look at other slides. What are the implications and our rules? To talk about poverty, Nigeria has been described severally as the poverty headquarters of the world. For people who don't know where poverty is, there are areas where subhanallah, the level is much higher. I have participated actively in studying poverty across Africa for a number of years. But poverty is a classic problem that has not been resolved in Nigeria until now. We have not resolved it. It's still with us. Now we are going to add to it. This is what analysts are saying. They say there is a projected increase in the number of poor people by an additional 13% occasioned by the pandemic come July 2020 in Nigeria. So even for what we have before, the pool, an additional 13% will just drop down the line to meet them. This is how severe the challenge is. One good effort to reduce poverty in Nigeria is Zakat. The brother, alhamdulillah, spoke about it earlier, about how 1 or 2 people started and a number of people have joined. Now, this is what we must do. A lot of us that are taking salary, we kid ourselves. We say, you know what? You know, I'm taking salary, I spend everything on my family, nothing is remaining. I don't have anything to give out as Zakat. You're kidding yourself. You are really, really kidding yourself. Very, very kidding yourself. If that is the interpretation that you have taken, then you are kidding yourself. There are 2 nisab for Zakat. There is a nisab for gold and there is a nisab for silver. For so many years, I used to kid myself with those kind of talk. I now discover it's a useless talk, very useless. If I go about with that, I will never pay Zakat till I die. And so what happened if Allah asks me about Zakat in the hereafter? What do I tell him? So what I've learned to do is that my gross income in a year, blanket, because calculating net from gross will cost me trouble. The definition of gross when you ask an accountant is not the same. Net is not the same. So what I do is I just pick up the gross income. What is the same is the gross. What is not the same is the net. You arrive at net using various means. Of course, I know that because I also study accounting as first degree. So what I do is I pick up the whole of my income in a year, gross, and I charge it 2.5% or 1/48. And that gives me my Zakat for the year. I want to get a lot of reward. So most time I take out my Zakat from every Ramadan month. So I like to get into the Ramadan month because every act of Ibadah done in this month is double. Maybe because I'm being selfish and I also want a lot of work. Because I've also done a lot of things that are wrong. So I pay it out during Ramadan. Now, this is what I encourage us to do. If you look at the nisab for gold and you are not able to meet the number for the nisab for gold, look out for the nisab for silver. Ask the member of the Zakat committee at the academy and they will tell you. And you can now pay based on the nisab for silver. Zakat is not a gift. Zakat is an obligatory transfer which distributed to decrease poverty in the world. Zakat is the entitlement of the poor in the property of the rich, for which no thank you is required. So the Muslim who must take Zakat knows that he's taking Zakat from your money and it's his right to take it. And it is obligatory on you to give it. So it's an obligatory transfer that which is given to reduce poverty in our society. Now, when we focus on Zakat, Zakat is a sum of money or goods taken from the asset that have fulfilled the requirement of Hawl and Nisab and allocates it to Muzaki, the person that is paying. We allocate it to him. So, okay, so this is it. And you take it out. If you don't know how to calculate it, ask people in the Zakat committee at the academy. They will help you to calculate it. So what are the evils? The evil is we are always afraid. Say, you know, I don't want to pay my Zakat to an individual and an organization. I will tell you the backside of both of them. Paying Zakat to an individual directly is not encouraged in our climb. It's not encouraged. I did it for several years and I've seen the backside of it. Most time, the poor do not know how to manage resources. They want to live like the rich. And most time, we do not know how to properly identify the poor in our community. So what we need to do is pay the Zakat to an organization that pull the funds together When they pull it together, they are able to identify better the people within the community that deserve zakat, and they are able to do due diligence. Because cash is a critical asset that must not be given to a fool. I once gave zakat to a group of brothers very close to where I was living, and I was shocked with what happened to the zakat. Naturally, I've never seen them drinking alcohol. As soon as they took the zakat, they started drinking alcohol. It means they have more money and they need to throw it away. In fact, that year I was worried about my zakat and I had to repeat it. Zakat is one of the pillars in the pillars of Islam as a form of social action that must be carried out by every Muslim. You see, when you look at fiqh, when you look at the fiqh of the Muslims, that's the signs of our worship. You can divide this fiqh into two broad ways. You can divide the fiqh into. You can have the fiqh of ibadah, and you can have the fiqh of mu'amala. Every aspect of the religion, be it the niyyah, which is the shahadatain, the salah, the hajj, and the sawm, which is the fasting, they all form into the fiqh of ibadah. Textual religious worship mentioned in the Quran. The fiqh of zakah fall into the fiqh of ibadah as well as the fiqh of mu'amala. It fell into both. So it is not just an act of worship for the ibadah, it's also an act of worship for the mu'amala. So you have both in it. So you must first of all look at it from that angle to say, okay, so it qualifies that you are using it as an economic tool as well as an act of worship. So zakat actually sanctifies the soul from stinginess. If you want to cleanse your soul from stinginess, one of the instruments to be used is zakat. I have a teacher that I study with, a Sufi scholar, and he said to me, one of the ways that you take out zakat and you are comfortable with it is when you take it out to pay it. You feel a pain that you are losing something, but you feel the happiness that you are also taking a reward. It also cleans you of greed and selfishness. It purifies your property from the right of others. People also have a right in your property. You know, I wake up very early in the morning. I'm the only person that's going to do work for this money. I'm the one that earns this money. There are people who are better than you, have a better certificate than you, more qualified than you. If it is ancestry, have a better ancestry than you, and Allah has decided to keep them poor. So what do you say to that? One of the ways for you to know that other people also have rights beyond your immediate family and your parents, other people who are Muslims also have a right in your property and have a positive impact on the economy of the community. Zakah will have a positive impact in the economy of our community by reducing poverty. Poverty is something that is great. The Prophet ﷺ also recognizes it. In his dua, he kept poverty between the fitnat al-qabr, the azab al-qabr, and kufr. So disbelief is the greatest of sin. The punishment of the grave is horrendous. Between these two, the Prophet ﷺ put poverty in the middle. When he made the dua, the famous dua, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-kufri wal-faqri wa azab al-qabr. So Zakat will impact on the economy of the community by reducing poverty. And when we bring down poverty, we increase economic growth and increase the purchasing power parity of the people. Like the brother actually captured it at the beginning. It's not as if everybody will have the same amount of money. No. But everybody will be able to actually reach his stomach and his mouth in dignity and honor. And those are the important and impact of Zakat in the community. Excuse me. The lack of that will mean that stealing, robbery, crime, everything will go up. And that is what we must avoid. And to do that, to make sure that we give out the Zakat, we mean that we become an example for every other nation in the world. When I say nation, I'm using nation in the context of religious nation in the world. The role of Zakat. Zakat system can play a vital role in supporting sustainable economic development and facilitating better financial inclusion. Today, when you look at the statistic that comes from FINA, you see that we are the most excluded community in Nigeria, the Muslims. Financially, we are the most excluded community in the country. And then a financially excluded community is a socially excluded community. Nobody will think about you when they're thinking of any policy. Brothers have called me, they have spoken to me and said, when government are planning palliative, they don't talk about the Muslims. They don't think that we don't want riba. I said, you are not important. Excuse me. So we are not important. When it comes to inclusion, your number is negligible. In terms of financial included people, your numbers are negligible. So no, our numbers have to have meaning for us to have a driving force. Zakat in Nigeria has a positive value to economic growth, and because of the small amount of Zakat which collected by too many organizations, the trouble we have with Zakat is very simple. We have too many organizations collecting Zakat. Too many organizations collecting Zakat, even in Lagos. Too many organizations are collecting Zakat. And too few people are paying Zakat. The Indonesians were one of the countries that we could take example from. A seemingly poor country like Nigeria, huge amount of Zakat collected because they have a centralized body that collects Zakat in Indonesia. And they have a database of all the poor people in Indonesia. Or let me say most of the poor people in Indonesia. So they know what to give to who. When I was studying in the UK, I noticed that the Pakistani brothers goes around and they collect a lot of Zakat from a lot of people and they repatriate the money back to Pakistan. So I was speaking with one of them and I said, why are you not thinking of Africa? So we're in Africa. I said, Nigeria. We have a lot of poor people in Nigeria. Why are you repatriating this money into Pakistan? Why are we not sending it to Nigeria? And the answer that he gave me actually shocked me. He said to me, but we are organized. So it means we are not organized as Nigerians. So we can have a lot of inflow of Zakat even from Nigerian Muslim in diaspora. And this is one thing that can give us a lot of leap. For every Zakat dollar that is being contributed is 480 Naira today. So how about we're having $1,000 from somebody who is in diaspora? That is almost 500,000 Naira. And I think for those of us that are working on the Zakat committee at the academy, we should be able to look at this. Let's get all our contacts in diaspora and let's tell them that we are now organized and we can take in the Zakat. Effort must be made to bring all the Zakat collecting unit across different organizations together and give it a structure. The academy, you can lead in this. You can lead in this. You can bring together all the organization. You can start from Lagos State and move it to Southwest and move it across Nigeria. You can start it. You can start another coalition of bringing together everybody that is collecting Zakat. Bring them together. Alhamdulillah, there is Zakat today that people will pay on sukuk. There's zakat today also that people will pay on Islamic financing, Islamic banking in Nigeria. The Takafu company will pay zakat. The Islamic banks will pay zakat. They all have their foundation. We should approach them and collect zakat from them. But we will do this better if we come in as a group. As a group, coming in as a group, we'll be able to do this and we'll be able to do it well. We also need to push for zakat as a tax-deductible item in our law. In our tax law, there's a need for us to get our tax expert. I saw Brother Ayosalami the other time on this platform. We should talk to him. We should get to push for the zakat as a tax-deductible item so that this will encourage people to pay more of zakat. We should reach out to people to pay zakat. Let's get a database of Muslims in Nigeria. Let's send them email. Let's send them SMS. Let's tell them about their zakat. Let's talk to them about their zakat. We should not have one annual discussion on zakat. If we've taken zakat the same way that we have taken Hajj, we will make a lot of impact in our community. People are going to Hajj 10 times. Sometimes I ask for what? I've spoken to a lot of people that I know that this year that we are going to, that Allah has made it not for you not to go on Hajj. Can you donate this money as sadaqah or lillah or a gift or even as a loan, Qard al-Hasan or dayn to the Muslims? Because the 1.2 million naira that you are supposed to use to go to Hajj, which Allah is not permitting this year, can take another person out of poverty. So we should push for it as a tax deductible item in our laws, particularly in our tax law. Now, let me summarize because I have 45 minutes. Zakat is obligatory on us using gold and silver nisab. Zakat, when paid honestly, can eradicate poverty. We're not just inferring. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala demonstrated this. He demonstrated this. And at that point, we got to a time in Islamic civilization where people even refrain from collecting zakat. They say, no, we have money, we don't need zakat. It got to that time. We can go back to this era and we can make this to work. Zakat is even more urgent now, both zakat al-fitr and zakat on our wealth is even much more important now. Today, we must be able to stand up and even pass a fatwa that people should pay their zakat al-fitr in cash so that people can get what to eat. Now, you want to give somebody rice. You should eat the raw rice with what? You're giving him maize, sorghum, and he will eat it how? This is the time where ijtihad is needed, and we need scholars to come out and pass fatwa to say, let's make this zakat in cash, the zakat al-fitr in cash, and let's give it to people. And say, this is it. People are hungry. This is the reality. People are hungry. If you have eaten sahur this morning, during the soup time, for you to have your sawm today, just note that a lot of people only drank water. A lot of people only drank water. Based on our current condition, we have to emphasize aggressive zakat collection in the Ummah. And we also need to administer it aggressively. If you have a zakat fund that the cash is still there and nobody is asking for it, it means you're not doing your job. I expect your zakat account to be in the red. Your zakat account must be in the red because we have more people that needs this zakat. During the time of Umar radiallahu ta'ala and even from the time of Uthman, Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala they sent soldiers to go and collect zakat. They sent soldiers to go and collect zakat. This is very important, that you must pay. Zakat must be paid, with emphasis on must. On your gold, on your silver, on your revenue-bearing assets. If you have given a loan to anybody that is above the nisab and you are expecting to get the money back, you must pay zakat on it. So I've said it earlier on that zakat belongs to both branches of fiqh, which is both on ibadah and mu'amala. Okay, so this is how I summarize my short presentation for this morning, for this afternoon. And I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept it from me and accept it from all the organizers and everybody present here. For any mistake that I must have made in the course of this presentation, it's from me and it's from Shaitan. May Allah forgive me and take me out of the wrath of Shaitan. For whatever good I has been able to contribute to the Ummah via this short presentation, is from Allah and is from His Prophet. May Allah accept it as an act of ibadah for all of us and grant us the reward. Wa akhiru da'wana walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa barakatuh. Jazakumullahu khairan. Malam Abdurrafiu Shawale, please, over to you. Thank you very much, Doctor. This is very exciting. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Malam Abdurrafiu, please, you have the floor.
Doctor. So I'm here, Elijah. So we have a lot of take homes from doctor's lecture today. I know many of us must have one question or the other to ask. There will be many things agitating our minds, so we give us opportunity to ask questions before we make. After the question, we go for presentation of how far Zakat, academic Zakat and Sadaqat have gone for the past 2 years. That is, our financial presentations will be made. Now, I'll open floor for questions and answers. I can see Brother Moshood Sanusi. So you can
okay, Malam Abrabu, there is a question by Brother Nuruddin Adenrito. He says, how can one pay Zakat on pension fund? How can one pay Zakat on pension fund? So we can write out those questions, Doctor, so that we can answer them together.
Yeah,
Inshallah.
So if you can type your questions, we prefer it. If you can type your questions, please, we prefer that. Let's type our questions. We can see hands up, but please, because of time, let's type out our questions. We can read them out. So in the meantime, let's let others aside. Moshood is the first person that I think indicated to ask a question. In Phoenix, notes for Abu Afnan, Shams, Akorede, please kindly type out your questions. I will only allow Malam Moshood Sanusi to ask his questions. Others, please, for the sake of time, let's type out our questions. Thank you very much. Malam Sanusi, Moshood, you have the floor, please. Go ahead.
Doctor, Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakumullah khairan for the brilliant lecture. May Allah reward you abundantly. The issue of Zakat, I want to ask, do you have in your institution for people that want to volunteer to serve as advocates, reaching out to promote Zakat among Muslim community and why they should pay, young-minded people that have the time that can do this? Do you have the how do I put it now? Do you have that in stock to train them as an internship, what they need to understand and how to communicate to people, like a training? So that's the question.
Thank you very much, Malam Moshood, for that question. In addition, sir, the questions are coming in now. So I have that of Abu Afnan. He says, Salamu alaikum. My question is that most people claim not. I think he's trying to say most people claim not to qualify to pay Zakat. So what qualifies you to pay Zakat? As usual, our people.
Yes.
So in Phoenix notes 4 question is, the Zakat is the only major point Doctor made. Are there no other Islamic economic options aside the Zakat that you mentioned? Are there no other Islamic economic options? That is from Infinix Notes 4. Then from Nafisa. Now, Pisa says, is it necessary to pay zakat as a student that earns monthly? Is it necessary to pay zakat as a student that earns monthly?
Is it necessary? Earn what? Earns an income?
Yes, an income monthly. An income monthly. And this is from Malam Nuruddin Zaka, and is asking, can I go ahead, sir?
Yes, sir.
Can one disburse zakat to a family member that obviously needs it instead of paying to the organization?
Can family member?
Which family member?
Who? Which member? Where? What is the position of the person?
Of the member. Okay, so Malam Nuruddin, please, you need to expatiate on that question. Which of the family member are you referring to? Your wife, your in-laws, your siblings? So please, let's know exactly the status of the family member. Then from Asiyut, Doctor, thanks for the presentation. How do you think it's possible for us to call others to join hands to operate as one body? I see that as a problem. He's talking about the Muslim community. How do we come together to form a coalition on zakat? So he wants you to just help us, give us an idea of how to go about it. Then this is from Hajia Amira Yusuf. She says, is it permissible to give zakat to your children? Is it permissible to give zakat to your children? And okay, Malam Zaka is back stating the family member. So he's saying your parents or your in-laws. The family member, your parents or your in-laws. And then Infinix Hot 5 is also asking, considering having a uniform zakat collector for the Ummah with diverse in ideas and belief among the Ummah, how can we achieve this? So I think the questioner is buttressing Asuyud's question. How do we buttress a zakat collection among the Ummah with diverse ideas and belief as a coalition? So that's the question. Another one, funds from non-halal sources. Funds from non-halal sources. What are the best options of disbursement? Funds from non-halal sources. What are the best options of disbursement? I can see Dr. smiling there. Then another one from Imam Ridwan Lawal. He says, will it be advisable to pay zakat on gross income when one is heavily weighted down with debt? Will it be advisable to pay zakat on gross income when one is heavily weighted down with debt? That's from Imam Ridwan Lawal. Then another one here from Akorede M. Is income on consultancy zakatable?
Sorry, take that again, brother.
The income on consultancy, is it zakatable? And if yes, how do we pay it? That's from Dr. Oloke. On consultancy, is it zakatable? And if yes, how do we pay it? Then another one from Malam Lukman says, can one calculate one's zakat from net income minus one's expenses and debts? I'll take 3 more questions and we'll allow our doctor to answer, because I can see the questions keeps coming in. There's a lot of questions on zakat, obviously. So I'll just take 3 more questions. Then after that, we'll allow the doctor to answer. Then I'll continue if we still have the time. So another one from Abdul. Salam alaikum, doctor. Please, as a business owner that rotates available funds all the time, how do I calculate my required zakat? As a businessman, as a business owner that rotates available funds all the time, how do I calculate my required zakat? The second to the last question, before the answering continues, what is the judgment on someone waiting for zakat for his sustenance and complains whenever he wasn't given one? What is the judgment on someone waiting for zakat for his sustenance and complains whenever he wasn't given one. Then the final one I will ask before we go on. Malam Muhyiddin, you'll have to wait till after these questions. Like I said, about 10 new questions coming up. But let me ask this final one so you can take them, then we can continue. So it says from Abu Afnan, Salamu alaikum. My question is that most people claim not pay zakat based on nisab. But our Sheikh view is that even a student can pay zakat based as a student using big phones and still claims he doesn't have income. So he wants you to expatiate on that.
Sorry, I didn't get the question. What is the question?
So the question
I didn't get the question.
Most people claim that they do not qualify for zakat, but they are students that uses iPhone 11 Pro.
Yeah, okay. Very rich student, right? Yeah.
And so on. So he wants you to expatiate on that. So we'll stop there for now. And inshallah, if we are able to exhaust this, we'll take other questions, inshallah. So doctor, you have the floor, sir.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much. The question shows that we actually follow this discussion, and alhamdulillah, I'm grateful. I will attempt to answer them, inshallah, and we can, sorry. Okay, so I will attempt to answer them, inshallah, to the best of my ability. Allah assist me. The first person says, how can one pay zakat on pension fund? Pension is an income that you take after your retirement and is paid to you. Now, at that point, you do not have any economic power other than the fact that the part that is set aside from when you are active is now pushed into what is then paid into you. Now, if that is being spent and you have a leftover of it, the leftover of it, if it's up to the nisab, that is what you pay zakat on. If it's not up to the nisab, you don't pay zakat on it. You look at the upper and lower end of the nisab. The upper end of the nisab is the gold standard. Today, it is 133,844 naira. 133,844. So if you have up to that 133,844, you take 1/40 of that, or 2.5% of that. That is what you pay. You see, all the questions that you are asking here, they've been asked by people of the past. And they've been asked even to contemporary scholars. And they are all there. In fact, yesterday I was going through some of the books when I was coming in to look at this. And they are just there. I mean, they're normal. So if you don't meet this standard, you don't meet the topper end of the nisab, then you look at the lower end of the nisab, which is the silver. So once you have 62,488 naira, 62,488 naira, you also pay zakat on that. That's the lower end of the nisab, and you have to pay zakat on it. You pay same thing, 2.5%, which is the same thing as 1/40 of the amount. Say, does your institute have young people that you train to and promote them to advocate for zakat? Let me say two things. One, probably you're talking about the academy. I often say to people that I'm one of the students of late Sheikh Abayomi. A lot of people have disputed it with me and they say, you are not a student. I say, I will tell you how I was. When the advertisement was put in the Concord newspaper, asking for students that would take courses from distance learning courses, I was in the north then. I applied. As Allah wills, the course never takes up, but I applied and I showed that I'm a student. So I'm taking that role now. So if people in academia have not put my name in the register, I'm asking Imam Malik now to put my name there because I've been a student too. Okay, so, but having said that, yes, there are training that are given to people to advocate for zakat. This has not been done formally, but this has to be done formally now. We have to look at it again and say, this is what zakat is, and we have to propagate the knowledge. Propagating the knowledge is one of the ways to get us out of poverty. So we will do that. It's not in place fully. It's something that we've thought of, but this is the time to do it, inshallah. He said, most people claim not to be qualified for zakat. It's a general thing. I've seen people who said, I'm ready to give my life for Islam. And I've said to them, please don't give your life. Just give us your pockets. money is a difficult thing for people to part with, especially when they see that, okay, you are taking it and you are giving it to another person. So it becomes very difficult. So you have to check before you say you are not qualified. It's a general slogan. I'm not qualified. I'm not qualified. You better check. He said, I've spoken about Zakat. Are there other instruments for economic alleviation in Islam apart from Zakat? The topic I'm asked to speak about is Zakat. Beyond Zakat, there are 17 other instruments. Some that we know, some that are actually strange to us in our own climate. Okay, so somebody wants to live his life and he's in poverty and he does not, is economically inactive, but is physically active. So he's an economical active poor. You don't give him Zakat. You don't give him Zakat. An economically active poor, if you want to take him out of poverty, you don't give him Zakat. What do you give him? You give him a qard. If you don't give him a qard, you give him a dayn. In fact, it is more advised that you give him a dayn. A dayn is a loan that you give to him and he must pay back. A qard al-Hasan is a benevolent loan that you give to him and he has a right to lose it or pay it back. You can give him lillah. You can give him sadaqah. You can also give him a gift. So, but for the handicapped poor, you give him Zakat, or her. You give them Zakat. Okay? Zakat is not what you just give to the imam in your mosque. If the imam in your mosque is under a salary and he's saving and he's living well, he has 4, 5 cars and he's doing fine. He has 2, 3 cars, he has 3, 4 wives, and he's doing fine. Why give him Zakat? For what? Why are you giving him Zakat? Zakat for what? Those are misplaced Zakat. So you have some other instrument beyond that, depending on the level of poverty. The scholars have looked at poverty and they've classified them accordingly. There are people, from when the chairman spoke to us earlier on at the beginning, he said they have done a lot of intervention in education. You do a lot of intervention in education with Zakat when you have people who have intergeneration poverty. The grandfather is poor, the father is poor, he is poor, and the tendency that his children are going to be poor is also there. So you use Zakat to intervene and provide that instrument to break the intergeneration poverty. The people who must collect Zakat are clearly identified in the Quran. No disputes about that. No scholars have disputed that. They are there clearly. So if we don't know, go and talk to the people in the Zakat committee of the academy and they will tell you. They will tell you the ayah from Innamal Sadaqat al-Fuqara. They will tell you up to the end of the ayah. It's there. The numbers are specified. They're clearly specified. During the time of the Khalifa of Ummah, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, they gave money to all of these people and they said they don't want the money again. They now turned to Ali and say, do we give this money to other set of people? We've given Zakat to people. Everybody have collected Zakat. We still have more cash. What do we do with it? And Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu said to Umar, he said, we will have to repeat that number again. That is the ijtihad of that time. He said, is it necessary for a student to pay Zakat because he's also earning monthly income? Yes. The position of being a student or not a student is secondary. What is important is that are you earning an income, or you have an income source, or even an estate that you have inherited, that is also providing a source of wealth that is now zakatable. Once that conditions are met, you are going to pay Zakat. So how do we come together and form a coalition for Zakat, bearing the differences in the Ummah? You see, sometimes we overblown these incidences of the differences in the Ummah. We overblow it. We need to give it a try. And if we're successful, alhamdulillah. But I will give you what they did in Indonesia. I studied the Zakat system in Indonesia. They were fragmented like us. Until 2013, they were fragmented like us. And they now discovered that they have run into a lot of issues, especially with the number of poor people. For those of you who have made the Hajj and you have met the Indonesian, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For an average Indonesian to make the Hajj, he needs to save for 10 years. And he has to be on the queue. So they came back and said, no, we have to do it differently. And so they start coming together and they start talking to themselves. It actually started with two organizations with like minds. And they came together and they start talking to themselves. And they start putting structure on it. And they were able to talk to their government and they now have a board. Before the first coming of Obasanjo in Nigeria, we never had an Hajj commission. The Muslim Pilgrimage Welfare Board was a proposal that they had to give to Obasanjo. They had to give it to Obasanjo, and Obasanjo had to implement it in his first coming. So nothing is impossible. It's only for us to have good intention. Will some people drop out? Yes, some people will drop out. You will not get everybody at the beginning. And it's a slow, painful process. Given the divergence in the Ummah, okay, yeah, so I think I've taken that. It says funds from non-halal source. What are the sources of disbursement? You see, Allah is a pious God and a clean one, and he will not take any work except that which is clean. If there are money that we've gotten, say interest from a bank loan or a money that we've kept in fixed deposit account, and we've now made some money out of it, we paid, the interest has been paid to us out of it. This is what the scholars of fiqh have advised, and the scholars of Sharia. They say we should give it out in charity, not zakat, in charity. And we should not expect any reward from Allah from it. However, some scholars have also gone ahead to say, but that act of giving it out in charity, we will get reward for it, but we will not get reward for that work that we have done, for that money that's been given out in charity. Does that look confusing? If it's confusing, please let me know so that I can take it again. Alhamdulillah, it's not confusing. So that's the way you disperse fund from non-halal sources. Brother, as much as possible, let's get away from fund from non-halal sources. Because if we think of the implication of money that comes from non-halal sources, then it becomes very difficult for us. The questioner asks, how do I pay zakat when I have huge debts? If I'm indebted, how do I pay zakat? One comes before the other. If you have the tendency that you have a source to pay these debts, if the source to pay the debt is certain, you pay zakat. If the source to pay the debt is not certain, you pay the debts. That is the position of the Sharia on it. The brothers ask, if I make income from consultancy, is it zakatable? Of course, as long as the job itself is halal. If you are not making your consultancy in the way of alcohol, pornography, riba, if you are doing your work and it is in the area of consultancy, it is zakatable. How do you pay? It's your net income. You are not, in fact, on your gross income. Because what are you doing in consultancy? You're only selling your brain. So from that, you pay your zakat, and it's straightforward. The consultancy is a major part of what I do, and I know that I must pay zakat on it. It's pure, straightforward. It's part of my income. The questioner asks, how do I calculate zakat? Do I calculate zakat from my net income, less debt, and less expenses? If you have challenge calculating your zakat, just speak to people at the academy zakat committee. They will help you with the formula. But it is known. Don't worry. You get help from them. As a business owner with rotated funds, how do we pay zakat? All businesses rotate their funds. There is no money. Say you keep money for this one, wage, this one, tax, this one, this one. It's not true. It's not true. In the books, that's the way we capture it. But in reality, it's the same fund that we rotate. What you do is that you know what your income is and you know what your profit is. You know what your income is and you know what your profit is. And from there, you have to pay zakat. There is no fund that is kept aside for different things in any business. He said, what is the judgment for someone who waited for zakat for his sustenance and complains if not given? If he's an handicapped poor, he has a right to challenge you and ask for it. And he has a right to complain for it. If he is an active poor and you are giving him zakat, give him a zakat that next year he will also give zakat. Don't give him again. Zakat is not to be a consistent means of livelihood. Zakat is to take him out of poverty. So we're giving him enough money to take him out of poverty, not something that you must say, okay, so I will just keep the zakat money and I'll be chopping it small. So when it's 12 months, they must give me another one, except if he's an handicapped poor. He's blind, he's deaf, he's crippled, okay? He has Parkinson, he can't walk, he can't function. Those are the people that we must support with zakat for the rest of our life, for the rest of their life. Or you have idiocy, okay? So those are the challenges that you support with zakat for the rest of your life. Say, how can rich student pay zakat? He's using, if he has an income, if he's living on the income of his parents, and he will not pay zakat for that, but if he's not living out of the income of his parents, and he has his own source of income, then he will pay zakat. I think there's a question I've jumped. Okay, from here I have 16, and I think I've tried to attempt the 16, inshallah. If there's anyone that I missed, please let me know. Okay, sorry, I've missed question 8. I've seen it now, because I remember there was this question. Is it permissible to give zakat to your parents, in-law, and children? I hope we all know the answer. We ask this question all the time. These are people that we have daily obligation to. They are not qualified for zakat. They are qualified for Amr bil Ma'ruf. And you hear this every Friday. The Imam tells you, Inna Allaha ya'amurukum bil adl wal ihsan wa ita'i zal qurba wa yan'a anil fashahi wal munkar wal baghi. You hear this every day. Every Friday you hear this. Your wife, you can't give zakat to your wife. You can give her a gift. Now, what technical people try to do is terrible, especially those of you who have very good knowledge of the Sharia. They will give a gift of whatever they want, whatever they have at the end of the year. Before they close to the end of the year, they will give it as gift to somebody else. And they say, you see, technically, I'm free from zakat now. I can't pay zakat. It's not true. You must pay zakat. You must pay zakat. Especially whenever whatever you give is beyond the nisab, you must pay zakat on it. So you can't give your father, you can't wait until the time of zakat before you take care of your father. It's your responsibility. You can't wait until the time of zakat to take care of your daughter, your son, or your children. It's your responsibility, a daily responsibility. So these are excluded lists from your zakat. They are excluded lists from your zakat. They are included lists in your day-to-day income and your finance, not on your zakat. So that was the question I missed. I hope this satisfied the questioner. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, Doctor. I think Malam Nuruddin is still saying, what about the in-laws? You didn't mention the in-laws. Are the in-laws also in that category?
Which part of the in-law? Which part of the in-law?
He just said in-laws. Maybe I don't know.
He has to be careful. There are those whom in coming together of a family that we call in-law, they are closer to us than other people that we call in-laws. Now, from your wife's side, your wife's father, your wife's mother, your wife's aunt, your wife's uncle. Now, the degree of closeness between you and each of these people are different. So when the fuqaha are capturing it, they start capturing it from the people. Can I go ahead?
Please go ahead, sir.
All right. So when the fuqaha were capturing it, this is what they did. You and your wife as a family, or you and your wives as families, you have your wife's parents who have assumed a position in your own life that from your wealth, you can also take care of them, but they are also can be given zakats because they cannot participate in the sharing of your estate when you die. However, your wife's uncle, sorry, I think I've mixed it. Your wife's father, your wife's uncle, which is the younger brother or elder brother or younger brother of your wife, can also participate actively because of their distance nature. But your own uncle, you cannot give him zakat. You have to take care of him. It's your responsibility. Your father is your responsibility. The younger sister or younger brother to your wife, you can pay zakat to them. But what we have discovered is that individual zakat are not effective. And do not forget, the zakat is not an amount of money that you pay to a non-Muslim. Zakat is for Muslim. Sadaqah is for what is for all. So if you are putting together Sadaqah and Zakat fund, you have to be careful. You can't take money from Zakat and start using it to do work of Sadaqah. Wallahu a'lam.